OK, then, what did you make of yesterday's student demo come riot? I was lucky enough to be filming something else in the centre of London yesterday as 50,000 students and lecturers gathered to voice their disapproval of coalition plans to triple the cost of university tuition fees to £9,000 a year. And I have to say, the picture I saw was very different to the one we've been showing you there, the one the tabloids have locked onto this morning. Unsurprisingly, they've covered the very small contingent that broke away from the main rally and stormed Tory Central Office just down the road from Parliament, smashing windows, setting fires, chucking eggs, sticks and bottles. But the vast majority marched peacefully, and I'd like to salute every one of them and the police who copped a bucket load for being underprepared, because from what I saw, they approached proceedings with just the right attitude, a far cry from the paramilitary approach of the G20 demo last year. I have my suspicions that many of those who did riot weren't even students, but opportunist anarchists looking to stir things up a bit. Student leaders have condemned yesterday's violence, but you can't help wondering if those appalling images have damaged the students' cause. Or maybe you think this angry outpouring was inevitable when the man who promised no rise in your fees to win your vote before the election does a total U-turn once in power. As I said, I can only say what I saw, and I saw tens of thousands of peaceful demonstrators doing their thing. Do you think, Craig, that the small contingent that caused trouble have damaged the students' cause?
Yes, I do. I really do, and I think it's really unfair. And I've got to actually agree with Boris Johnson, just saying that there was an appalling abuse of the right to protest, by a small minority, and I agree with him that it's intolerable and it's unfair, I think, on the peaceful students who are raising, a very valid point.
Yes.
So I think it's quite a sad occasion.
Can I check this one out?
That couldn't have been controlled somehow.
Some of the students I was talking to yesterday said that they felt that anger verging on violence was justified when the people we're supposed to respect, our MPs, treat our loyalty with such disdain. They say one thing and then they do the total opposite with bells on.
Yeah, but I think it's numbers, isn't it? It's people in numbers rather than violence, rather than breaking, breaking huge big windows and stuff like that, putting people's lives in danger.
A million people marching against the Iraq War.
Is it worth but is it worth dying over? That's what you have to ask yourself.
And also rioting for riot's sake, which is suspected.
Yeah, fire extinguishers being dropped from, 9 floors or whatever is just appalling, and big lumps of concrete. I mean, it could have really killed someone, and it'd be a very different story.
But, as I said, my suspicion is there were students there, without a doubt, but whether or not the urge of violence was precipitated by students, I have my doubts. Kirsty, do you think the cause has been damaged, or, I mean, it's getting masses of attention?
I sympathise, I empathise with the students. I really do, because they should be angry, and I would be angry, but... Yeah, I mean...
You should be angry. You're the one that's got children. They're the ones who are going to be graduating with £60,000-70,000 worth of debt.
Exactly. The fact is they haven't set a good example, have they, at all? But
you see, they have, because if you have 100 people and one of them causes trouble,
then
it's totally unfair for the other 99 to be smeared like that. And as I said, thousands, tens of thousands of law-abiding, peaceful protesters. Not a word about them in the papers.
Well, that's the shame of it. That's a shame. But no, when we, I wasn't in in the middle of town yesterday, and you saw that, and that's the problem. I was, I've just seen what's in the papers. I've watched the news, and all I see are the fact that a fire extinguisher was dropped from a ninth floor of a building, and windows kicked in.
Insane.
So for us, the wrong message has been sent through the press as well, which actually is wrong as well.
Amanda?
Well, it's a bit like the thing that you used to have at school. I don't know whether you guys had it. If one person did something wrong and no one would own up, then the whole class was punished, and I feel that that's what's happened here. One of the things that worries me about this is the way this coalition government have sort of come in to power, and I just feel that they've just taken this huge brush and has just sort of swept the whole country, that there's going to be an awful lot of unrest. I don't think we're a happy nation at the moment. And I think out of the 50,000 peaceful demonstrators, there were 300 non-peaceful rioters. That little group of 300 will grow and grow and grow.
Well, there's a thought.
And every time there is going to be a lot of unrest in this country. You can't do the huge amount of cutbacks that this government is doing and not expect people to just take it lying down. So I can see more and more protests happening, and I can see this little band of 300 growing and growing and growing and growing. We're spoiling for a fight in this country at the moment because I think we're really angry.
It's been a long
time.
Well, it's been a long time. Talking to the students here, none of whom went on the demonstration yesterday because they were very sensible when they did their lectures instead. But you could maybe I would say they should have been out there doing their march, but it's... We've had a long period where people have sat on their hands. I'm amazed that we haven't had people out on the streets over pensions working to 66. In France, working to 62 brought the country to a standstill.
Well, we're talking about we're repressed, aren't we? We do that terribly stoical British thing of then taking it on the chin, and then all of a sudden, at some point, that pressure point is going to go. And this little 300, this band of 300 people, I can see that because of the internet and everything else, it's going to grow in size. And every time there's a demonstration in London,
there's going to be trouble. And what I really dread, and that was my point about the police, is the police went there with a really... I spoke to some of them as well. They went there with a smile on their faces as a way of guiding a peaceful protest. And I didn't want to see another G20 and sort of paramilitary tactics. And then, because of this small band, you know the next time around it's going to be riot shields all the way down the line. But they've got to become
more prepared for it, I think. I do think that the Met... we're not playing happy families anymore. They're going to have to get... As soon as there's another demonstration in London about anything, they've got to get on it.
OK, let's throw it open to you. Let's hear your thoughts on yesterday's student demo.
OK, Oliver was actually there. He's online too.
Morning, Oliver.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, good morning, Matthew.
Morning. So, what's your take on it, then?
Well, basically, I was at Millbank yesterday, and quite a lot of us were getting immediate feedback to do with how the media was representing it, and we're quite disappointed because it's been portrayed with this caveat that it was only 30 or a few hundred, whereas initially I was at Parliament Square, and there was quite a lot of us that walked down from Parliament Square to go and show support to the people at the Millbank. At the end, there was about 600 or 700 people there at its height. Yes, there was violence at the line with the police, which is necessary to keep the line of defence where it is. So we maintained the ground, but only metres behind. There was people with portable sound systems playing music. There were people dancing around.
I've seen footage of people trying to push people back. Members of the demonstration urging people to back off rather than push through. But you don't hear their story.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there was a kind of. I mean, with regards to the fire extinguisher being thrown off the top, I haven't spoken to a single person who supports that. I mean, that is very possibly the act of an individual. And it could have killed someone. It was very dangerous, and it was very over the top. But with regards to the actual nature of the violent protests themselves, I think this sort of thing needed to happen, really, because I mean, if you look back at how many people protested against the war in Iraq,
1 million,
and it still happened.
Yeah.
The implicit when people in such large numbers gather is the threat of violence. What we are essentially saying...
Oliver, I was on student marches in '86 against the introduction of tuition fees, and I was on the peace march against the Iraq war. There is a strength that comes from seeing 1 million people marching in peace that will never, ever be forgotten. And there is a weakness in a few hundred people smashing things up and undermining the protest of tens of thousands. And that's... that. Whilst I know where you're coming from, but ultimately, and the last question I want to put to you is, do you not think that the scenes that will be broadcast by the media ultimately have damaged the students' cause?
Actually, no, I don't think they have, because we were in a situation where we have a very apathetic student body. We had people very reluctant. I'm involved in organising action on a local level. We had people who were very reluctant to actually get involved. And we're in a catch-22 situation, because the general response is to draw up petitions, hold these little marches when we're given permission to do so.
OK, do you think after what's happened yesterday, do you think the next time you have a march you're going to have more people coming onto the streets with you or fewer?
Yeah. This sort of action makes people realise that there is potential for people to band together and actually attempt to make a difference.
We shall see. Thank you for the call. Sorry, we got loads and loads of calls. Well argued, thank you. Let's have another.
OK, we have Kate next on line 3.
Kate, good morning.
Good morning.
Were you there?
I wasn't.
OK.
So I've only got the media coverage to go on.
Right.
And since being educated by your fab programme this morning...
Thank you.
I now know a lot more.
Yeah.
But my initial point was, I've got twins who want to go to uni, but violence is so not the answer to get the message over. The damage done will have to be paid for by taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Which is going to be taken away even more from, you know, everybody that needs it.
But never, ever from the super rich, is it? I mean, Philip Green, God bless him, consultant to the government, legally avoids paying tax by paying profits of his company to his wife who lives in Monte Carlo.
And the NHS budget for the injured people, you know, I do think it was probably rogue people and not genuine students that were at the core of it.
I'd like to think it was, because if you drop a fire extinguisher from 9 floors, you're either a moron or a terrorist, aren't you, really? It's one of the two. It wasn't just as you saw it on telly, though, Kate. I promise you, it really wasn't just as you saw it. The vast, vast majority, tens of thousands of people, behaved with complete dignity.
We're so glad to hear that.
Thank you, Kate. Let's have another.
OK, we have Richard next on line 5.
Morning, Richard.
Good morning, Matthew.
Were you there?
I wasn't there.
OK.
Because I didn't think anything would actually happen.
What? What? So you had only gone there for a fight?
Not for the fight, just for more of the action. Like, the fact that there's action going on, because peaceful protests, in my opinion, have never really worked.
Well, it managed to get the British out of India. Richard doesn't know what he's talking about. Have we got anybody else?
OK, we have Adam next on line 1.
Adam, good morning.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello. Were you there?
I wasn't there, no. Like the previous lady, I've only got the media's coverage to go on. My point is that the parties we elect to go to Parliament are there with the consent of the governed. And if they go to government on a promise and then renegade on that promise, then unfortunately, you know, people are going to get rather upset about that.
Yeah.
And like the other caller said, we've had marches on Iraq, we had loads of people there, they didn't care, they didn't listen, they did what they wanted to do without any regard about what the common person in the street really felt about the situation.
Although you could argue that while the war continued, it didn't exactly make life easy for Tony Blair and his cronies, did it? So there was an impact. And just one other point, which it is worth saying, which is the majority partner in the coalition with the Tories, they never said anything about scrapping tuition fees or keeping them frozen. This is what you get with a coalition government, don't you?
But certainly the Lib Dems did.
Oh, they did.
And they're the one propping up the government. So I can understand why people are getting rather upset. And when you go to Parliament, you make promises and you go back on them, like the Conservatives are going to do about the Lisbon Treaty very soon when they reopen it. People are going to get angry because they want a choice. They want to be able to express their choice about what their country does.
So is your prediction more trouble to come?
100% yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. OK, good. Wide range of views? Right, wide range of views. Thank you. We'll move on. I get trouble because I think Adam is dead right. I think there will be trouble, and I think actually at the root cause of that is if you look up to people like MPs and they do a complete volte-face, you are left wondering what to do. And they could have said, collectively, the Lib Dems, we're not going to do it and bring down the government. They could have done it. We could have had another election and then got a completely Tory government in. Wouldn't that be fun? Or Gordon Brown back, no. Not that. After the break,